Have you ever wondered how a huge global company can predict the future? Well, today, we're digging into how one manufacturing giant did just that, using tons and tons of data. But this isn't just some high-tech story. We're going to connect all the dots, from their incredible innovation right down to how you could actually get a job there and become part of it all.
You know, this quote right here, it's really the key to the whole thing. It's about a fundamental shift in how businesses think. Instead of waiting for something to break and then scrambling to fix it, the goal is to see the problem coming and stop it before it even happens. Think of it as the difference between being a firefighter who puts out fires and a fire marshal who prevents them from starting in the first place.
So here's the game plan for today. First, we'll unpack the big challenge Albis was up against. Then we'll get into the really clever solution they came up with and what it actually did for them. After that, we'll take a peek behind the curtain at what it's like to work there, and we'll wrap it all up with some solid, practical advice on how to get your foot in the door.
All right, first up, the quality problem. We're calling this one drowning in a sea of data. And that's not an exaggeration. This is where the story kicks off, with a company that had more information than they knew what to do with, but they just couldn't make sense of it all.
So who are we talking about here? Albis Plastic. They're a major player in the chemicals industry, based out of Hamburg, Germany. And they are not small. We're talking 1.1 billion euros in revenue, 1,400 employees. They make these high-tech plastics that you find in pretty much everything, from cars to medical devices. So yeah, the stakes are pretty high. And here is the scale of the problem. Just get your head around this number. Their machines were pumping out about 5 terabytes of data every single year. That is a colossal amount of information. It's a non-stop digital fire hose, and they were trying to take a sip from it.
But here was the real kicker. All that incredibly valuable data was basically trapped. It was stuck on local computers at all their different factories in totally separate systems. We call these data silos. Imagine trying to solve a giant puzzle, but all the pieces are locked in different rooms. That's exactly what Albis was dealing with. All the answers were there, somewhere, but there was no way to see the big picture.
So what do you do when you're faced with that kind of chaos? Well, that brings us to our next section, a predictive solution. Or maybe a better way to put it is building the crystal ball for manufacturing. They decided if they couldn't see the big picture, they would build something that could.
Now, you know, a project this massive, you don't do it alone. It took a real dream team to pull this off. You had Albis Plastic, the client with the big idea. You had the tech giant SAP providing the powerful cloud platform. And then you had a specialist company, ISR, who were the experts that came in and actually built the whole thing.
Okay, so how did this crystal ball actually work? It's pretty genius, really. The system basically did 2 main things. First, it grabbed live, real-time data straight from the sensors on the factory machines. That's the Internet of Things part. Then, and this is the magic, it combined that live feed with years and years of historical business data. So by blending what's happening right this second with everything that's happened in the past, they could finally start to see the hidden patterns that lead to problems.
So let's break that down. Super simple. Step 1, you gather all that live data from the machines. Step 2, you mix it together with all the historical data you've got. Step 3, you let powerful analytics sift through all of it, hunting for any patterns that smell like trouble. And then step 4, the most important part, the system automatically flags the quality team before a problem actually happens, so they can step in and prevent it.
All right, so they've built this incredible system. But the real question is, did it work? What did it actually do for the company? That brings us to section 3, the business impact. This is where all that cool tech turns into a real-world advantage.
And the results? Well, they speak for themselves. Suddenly, they could see exactly how their production lines were performing. That led to much higher, much more consistent quality. It meant fewer delays. And of course, that means happier customers who get what they ordered right on time. And maybe the biggest win of all, they created a model, a blueprint, that they could use again and again for other big data projects.
And Matthias Schultz really summed it up perfectly. This wasn't just a one-and-done project. It became the actual backbone for all of their advanced data analysis going forward. It gave them a platform to keep innovating and to create a serious competitive edge in a really tough industry. So that's the high-level corporate story, and it's really impressive stuff. But what does it actually feel like to work inside a company like this? Let's zoom in from that 30,000-foot view right down to the people on the ground. We took a look at employee reviews for their U.S. plant down in South Carolina, and it paints a pretty interesting picture. Overall, a solid 3.7 out of 5 stars. Looks like people feel pretty good about work-life balance and pay. The one area that seems to get more of a mixed reaction is management, which comes in a bit lower at 3.1. But of course, numbers never tell the whole story. You've got experiences like this one from someone in administrative support who called it an amazing place to work. They specifically praise management for being open and communicative. So it shows that for some people, the experience can be really, really positive.
And then on the flip side, you get a different perspective. This is from an extrusion operator who felt that middle management was poor and pointed to a culture of favoritism. It's important to see both sides, right? It gives you a more realistic view that, like any big company, there are always things they can work on.
Okay, so you've seen the cutting-edge technology, you've gotten a glimpse of the company culture. What if you're thinking, hey, I want to be a part of something like that? Well, you're in luck. That's our final section, how to get hired. This is all about getting your foot in the door.
At a company like Albis, especially with its German engineering roots, interviews tend to be pretty structured. You can expect questions to fall into a few key areas. They'll want you to walk them through your resume, that's the biographical part. They'll ask about your biggest successes to see what you're proud of. They'll ask about teamwork to see how you collaborate. And they'll ask what motivates you to see what really makes you tick. They're trying to figure out if you'll be a good fit.
So how do you knock it out of the park? Here are some fantastic tips from people who've actually been in that interview room. Make sure you have a good story about a time you faced a challenge and pushed through. Do your homework, know what they make and who their competitors are, and please prepare some smart questions of your own to ask them. And just remember, the goal isn't to survive an interrogation, it's to have a conversation. Try to connect.
And here is a piece of advice that is absolutely golden. It's simple, but so many people mess this up. When they ask why you're looking to leave your current job, never, ever complain about your old boss or your old company. Everyone knows you're leaving for a reason, but how you frame it says everything about your character. Just focus on what you're looking for, the new opportunities, and your own strengths. Stay positive.
So, let's bring it all home. Albis Plastic built an incredible system to proactively predict and shape the future of its products. And really, the exact same principle applies to your own career. If you proactively understand your own data, your skills, your passions, your wins, you can start to predict and shape your own future instead of just waiting around and reacting to whatever comes next.